Yeah. Uh, Good
Oh,
afternoon. His Excellency Dr. Ahmed A.R. Albanna, distinguished guests, members, and media friends. I have great pleasure in extending a warm and hearty welcome to His Excellency Dr. Ahmed A.R. Albanna, Ambassador to UAE to India, today on Zoom platform. We are grateful to His Excellency Dr. Ahmed A.R. Albanna for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to be here with us to share his views and vision on enhancing trade and investment opportunities between our two countries. We believe that this interaction with our chamber will be mutually rewarding. His Excellency Dr. Ahmad came to India as the ambassador of UAE to India on January 2016. Prior to this appointment, he served in the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. He held numerous significant positions within the ministry, notably including the Director of Department of Economic Affairs and the Director of Department of African Affairs. He has a doctorate degree in international economics and WTO agreements. Having a distinguished career as a diplomat and strategic thinker, Dr. Albanna has participated in the negotiations of various free trade agreements, notably in the GCC EU, EFTA, and was a part of the UAE National Committee for the World Trade Organization. Sir, India and UAE enjoy strong bonds of friendship which are founded on millennia old cultural, religious, and economic intercourse between the two regions. People to people contacts and trade between the two regions have existed for centuries. India UAE bilateral relations have received impetus from time to time with exchange of high level visits from both sides. The year 2022 will be a remarkable year for the two friendly nations, which marks the 50th anniversary of India UAE diplomatic relations established in 1972. At a time when India is celebrating 75 years of its independence as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and UAE is celebrating 50 years of its independence, sir, we extend our deepest gratitude to His Highness Tamim bin Ahmad Al Thani for its solidarity and support extended to India during the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. Sir, we are glad that the historic relations between India and UAE has further strengthened with the signing of comprehensive economic partnership agreement between the two countries. It is truly a landmark moment in the long-standing India-UAE trade relations. The agreement will usher in a new era in our bilateral economic relations, and it is projected that the bilateral trade volume in goods will increase from $60 billion to $100 billion and trade in services to over $15 billion in next 5 years, a creation of lakhs of jobs. There is no doubt with the signing of SEPA, many new avenues of collaborations will open in sectors like agriculture and processed food, including meat and marine products, gem and jewelry, apparels and textiles, leather and footwears, as well as sectors like engineering, organic chemicals, plastic, paper and paper products, iron and steel, electrical and electronics, automobile and auto components, and pharmaceuticals, etc. Sir, the bilateral trade between India and UAE has been on an upswing from USD 43.3 billion in 2021 to USD 52.8 billion in 2021-22, while exports have grown from USD 16.7 billion to 20.1 billion. Imports have risen to 32.7 billion from 26.6 billion during the same period. The major items of India's export to UAE include petroleum products, precious metals, stones, gem and jewelry, minerals, food items, textile and engineering, and machinery products and chemicals. So the UAE is India's third largest trading partner in the world. Given the strategic location of the UAE and its proximity to Central Asia and Africa, we feel that signing of SEPA will open up new markets for Indian manufacturers and MSMEs and expand the visibility of Indian products across those new markets. Sir, our export basket has a concentration of three items: petroleum products, gem jewelry, and electrical machinery. These accounts for nearly 50% of our exports to UAE. We feel that the export basket can be diversified with the additions of pharmaceuticals, automobiles, and chemicals, areas where India has a competitive advantage. Export of consumer goods such as footwear, carpets, umbrellas, textile, toys, and game products may also get a boost from India. In the agro sector, we are already exporting fruits, spices, and cereals. Still, there is an untapped export potential to the UAE from India, especially in GI tagged products such as jackfruits, grapes, jaggery, turmeric, honey, etc. Sir, we are interested to know your views on this. Sir, the UAE is the ninth biggest investor in India in terms of FDI. The UAE's investment in India is estimated to be around USD 17 to 18 billion of dollars, of which 11.67 billion dollars is in the form of FDI, while the remaining is portfolio investment. On the other hand, sectors with the highest FDI inflow from India to the UAE comprises mainly tourism and hospitality, construction, logistics, healthcare, and metals. The UAE has committed to invest USD 75 billion in India's infrastructure sector over a period of time. We feel that India has further scope of investments in the sectors of automobile, IT, textile, and pharmaceutical industry. Also, India and UAE has great potential for cooperation in environment protection, such as clean energy. Sir, we are eager to know your views in this regard. Sir, the UAE currently ranks 16th in the World Bank's annual Ease of Doing Business report. The country is an efficient base for trading, manufacturing, and services, owing to a mix of active governance, well-organized supply chains, and logistics. As we deepen our already strong partnership with the business community in both the countries, we are keen to know possibilities of cooperation between West Bengal and UAE. With the strategic location commonly known as Gateway to the East, vast pool of skilled labor, West Bengal offers great opportunities and incentives for trade and investment in the thrust areas like information technology, textile, electronic goods, leather products, and food processing, and other core areas. Sir, we are keen to know how you are viewing the emerging prospects of trade and investments opportunity in West Bengal, and how we can cooperate and work to boost business activity and knowledge transfer. Sir, today's newspaper, I was just reading a very it's a very good news appeared that India and UAE has agreed to waive off the mandatory airport testing, RT-PCR testing for the travelers. So now that has been waived off, which will definitely give a boost to the tourism and also the business travelers. But at the same time, India has also agreed in principle to provide extra seat capacity to the UAE so that they can fly more aircrafts, and that will definitely make the seats available at a more reasonable and competitive prices, and may encourage the tourism as well as the business over there. With these few observations, I will now request Your Excellency to address the members and enlighten us with your views on the subject. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, I would say, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, Namaskar, and good evening or good afternoon to all of you. It is a pleasure to be on this platform today with the Merchant Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Excellencies, Mr. Kothari, President of MCCI, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me again to be part of this gathering and this, let's say, B2B dissemination of information in reference to our bilateral trade and the overall UAE-India relations. If we look at the level of the relationship, UAE-India. Now, historically, it's been there for thousands of years. And historically, it was people-to-people relationship. And I would say since 2015 or 2016, the bilateral trade have gotten on a different track, a strategic level track. And it is driven out of the interest, as I mentioned, people-to-people interest. And then, of course, when we say people-to-people interest, that covers the businessmen, the professionals, the industrialists, many different levels. And yes, as it was mentioned by my colleague, the president of MCCI, a great moment in history took place on 18th of February, a couple of days back, where there was, in the presence of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces, and the Honorable India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended a virtual summit, and the signing of the CEPA agreement, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, took place on that day. The importance of that day, the importance of the agreement showed from the prospect of having two of my ministers, Minister of Economy and Minister of State for Foreign Trade. Both of them were present here in Delhi, where they signed the agreement along with the Honorable Minister of Commerce, Shri Piyush Goyal, and on that day, in front, as I mentioned, in front of our leadership. The Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between our two countries would unleash the golden era. And I should mention, in 2017, there were several MOUs and agreements that was signed, and it was crowned by a strategic agreement. And that was in 2017. And here we go in 2022, we crown all the agreements by signing the CEPA agreement. It will boost investment, it will boost trade, it will boost technological partnership. My colleague mentioned the different sectors where it will benefit from the CEPA agreement. It will create jobs, and it will decrease the numbers of unemployment, and it will raise and create employment. So from many different sectors. The agreement is expected to boost bilateral trade over $100 billion. At the moment, as my friend mentioned, I would say the overall bilateral trade, including oil and gas, it's about $60 billion. And non-oil and gas, it ranges around 43 or 45 billion dollars. The business community, all of you present here, as a matter of fact, shall play an instrumental role in achieving our ambitious trade investment targets that is set out in our CEPA agreement. The bilateral trade relationship has been the cornerstone of the exemplary partnership between the two countries. In terms of trade, the UAE stood as India's third largest trade partner for 8 consecutive years. Now, in terms, if we look and just to see the percentage of growth, I can go back some years back. For example, in the 80s, if we look at the bilateral trade in the 80s between UAE and India, it was around $185 million. And 2020, 2021, as I mentioned, the non-oil trade reached to about 43 or 45 billion dollars. So that by itself tells you the big, huge, tremendous growth. For years, United Arab Emirates has been the gateway to the world for India and has often been viewed by Indian companies as a major re-export hub, owing to its geographical locations, of course, well-developed storage and logistic and infrastructure that we see and that we have in the United Arab Emirates. Now, if we look at it from the different perspective, my friend also mentioned in terms of the investment and the flow of investment. I'm not gonna repeat those numbers, but then the UAE is the largest Arab investors in India, which takes about 72% of total Arab investment in India, or more than 72%. UAE stands committed as a trusted partner of India in realizing Prime Minister Modi's vision of taking India's economy from the existing $2.5 trillion to about $5 trillion in 2025. Another pillar of our relationship, I mentioned the Indian diaspora. We have more than 3.4 million Indians living in the UAE. India diaspora plays a pivotal role in the socio-economic fabrics of the UAE and probably the most dynamic aspects of our bilateral trade. Now, if we look also the Indian diaspora living in the UAE, if we look at the remittances or the total remittances from there to India, it has exceeded $14 billion a year. Now, looking to diversify and deepen the bilateral economics relations in other newer areas, I would mention specifically advanced manufacturing, defense, food processing, food security, healthcare, information technology, space, and AI, artificial intelligence. The impact of coronavirus disease, COVID-19 outbreak were unprecedented and felt by business organizations and economies of the world. The pandemic has severely affected the labor market and economic enterprises and affected global supply chain, leading to a widespread business disruption. But that taught us a new attitude and a new thinking and a new vision, and that is the strategic alliances, partnership. And now more than ever, we look toward economic recovery in the post-pandemic era. Even during the pandemic, I remember the cargo operations and the cargo flights and the existing passengers flights that were used for cargo never stopped between the United Arab Emirates and India. So that logistic chain continued. UAE and the conducive business environment. If we look at, I'm sure all of you have been to the United Arab Emirates, all of you have experienced, have seen the UAE, but I'm gonna touch on certain aspects in terms of the landscape, in terms of the dynamically changing infrastructure and dynamically changing rules, laws, and regulations. As you all know, the United Arab Emirates have relaxed and removed the range of limits on foreign ownership. Now in mainland, foreign ownership of businesses is allowed in the United Arab Emirates. The recent amendments to the Commercial Companies Law, interestingly, are looked at to increase the numbers of companies established in the UAE. We are looking at more than, or to reach to 1 million companies during the next coming 10 years. 1 million newcomers, new companies. The expansion of eligibility of the golden visas. You have heard about our program of offering golden visas, green visas, self-residency status visas, investors and entrepreneurs visas, highly skilled individuals and top students and graduate visas. This all have been offered by the government of UAE to attract brains, to attract capital into the economies of the United Arab Emirates. The UAE is a land of many firsts. We are poised to use advanced technology to power our next phase of economic growth. The increasing startups and fintechs, the incubator centers, those are an important elements that has been looked at in the United Arab Emirates and looking at an ecosystem that supports each other, supports the economy overall. The forward-looking policies and initiatives taken by our leadership to protect and promote business interests has provided resilience to the economic landscape of the United Arab Emirates. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that the time is ripe now more than ever for global business to set up into the UAE and leverage from its strategic location, well-developed infrastructure, excellent connectivities, stable political system, investor-friendly policies, and overall ease of doing business. There is a never-seen-before level of positivism between the two countries, which intend to foster and build and secure and stable a long-lasting relationship. UAE wants India to be its preferred economic partner in creating a real partnership to wave a big, huge economic growth in both nations. With the help of all of you, the businessmen, the industrialists, the professionals in different professions, I think that will lead to the goal of both nations, United Arab Emirates and India. I'm not going to go further than that. I would like once again to thank Merchant Chamber of Commerce and the president and all the key managements in the chamber, along with its membership all the members of the Merchant Chamber of Commerce. I thank them for giving me the opportunity to be on this platform and to be part of this platform. And I hope to interact with you at many different future occasions. Thank you very much.
मार्केटिंग करना है बाजार कुछ
नहीं
कौन है डॉक्टर साहब आइसक्रीम नहीं है
Thank you, Your
क्या दिला रहा
Excellency.
है
Suresh, excuse me, sir. Suresh ji.
पहले सभी लोग जरा
Suresh ji, please keep yourself mute.
एक तो
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing the insight of the things. So before I ask the other joining members to raise their questions and issues with you, I'd like to have one small clarification. When do you expect the SEPA to be notified? I believe that though it has been signed, but still it is awaiting for some government clearance from the UAE, and thereafter only it will be notified with the details. Please.
1 month.
1 month. Okay. So, now I open the floor for the members to raise their questions. So those who wants to raise the question may kindly unmute themselves and raise it. Mr. Dipendu Chaudhary, do you have any question to ask?
Yes, I have question, but I am not live. Okay.
Now we can see, you are joining, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay. Just Your Excellency, sir, I am Dipendu Chaudhary, freelance article writer and journalist and blogger from Kolkata. So today I have one article with Sangbad Pratidin daily newspaper on International Kolkata Book Fair. Anyway, sir, thank you very much for your valued speech. And I have just a little question that what your government policy to invest in our state, West Bengal, on the sector of leather industry, tourism, IT sector, and cultural exchange to overcome unemployment crisis. What you mentioning in your speech. So that will be helpful to in between India and UAE relationship, bilateral relationship, and as well as we are also as a Bengali people, as a cultural people, we want to exchange with UAE culture. Please, sir.
Well, for sure. As I mentioned, there are lots of sectors that will benefit tremendously from the SEPA agreement. And maybe one of that, as you mentioned, the leather and the IT, of course, the information technology and the AI, artificial intelligence, and of course, culture. I talked about people-to-people interaction. And there is a memorandum of understanding that will be signed very, very soon in the next coming week or so in reference to culture and culture collaboration. And I hope that we will see more interaction and more usages of what we call the soft power. Culture, soft diplomacy is one of the main elements that we will see a lot of it in the very near future after the implementation of the CEPA agreement.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Sanjay Bajaj from Calcutta. I want to know how I can reach to construction giants in UAE from here, like Yellow Pages or some Chamber of Commerce like things.
Well, you can get in touch with my commercial officers at the embassy here in Delhi, and they'll provide you with all the info. Now, again, on the level of the United Arab Emirates, we have the Federation of the UAE Chambers, but then on the individual level of each emirate, we have the Chamber of Commerce involved in each emirate, which is Dubai Chamber of Commerce, Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce, Sharjah Chamber of Commerce, and so on and so on. So therefore, each of those Chamber of Commerce have an online site where you can obtain all the information you need, whether construction or any other type of companies. But our office, our commercial attaché's office, will be more than glad to assist you.
Okay. So any contact details for of your office?
Yes,
email
of course.
ID or so?
In New Delhi, our commercial attaché's office at any time, and you can also find us on the web. So we'll be more than glad to attend to any of your requests.
Okay, thank you.
You are on mute.
Mr. Jeevan Chakravarti.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ahmed. This is Dr. Jeevan Chakravarti from Sham Steel Industries Limited. We are in the steel making business, and also we have diversified in infrastructure sector and IT sector also. Now, I would specifically like to know whether United Arab Emirates does provide any opportunities for the small players in the infrastructure sector and also the steel sector to participate in the development process in your country. This is one question. Second question is how the Indian students can have the opportunities for research and development in different sectors in colleges, universities in UAE, and what are the opportunities available to them?
Well, for sure, under our Ministry of Economy, we have a dedicated minister for small and medium enterprises in the construction sector, or the support of the construction, or the steel construction, and small or medium players. They play an important role in the overall business climate in the UAE. So yes, you're welcome. You want to set up there, we will assist you in finding the right organizations to get all the information in reference to small and medium enterprises. Now, in reference to R&D, of course, research and development, unicorns I mentioned earlier, startups, incubator centers, ecosystem, all those are very welcome. The UAE is interested to attract in the United Arab Emirates, and whatever information you need in reference to any sort of setup there, we'll be more than glad to provide it.
Thank you very much, sir. I have an additional question. How United Arab Emirates can help us in having new technology in the matter of producing more improved quality steel?
Sorry, I didn't hear your last part of the
technology. India has already entered into a comprehensive partnership agreement, and taking advantage of this, we do hope that United Arab Emirates will also transfer the improved technology they do have with them in different sectors like steel making, horticulture, agriculture, and all other sectors. How this could be put into place on the ground?
Well, there is a mechanism for every agreement, and there are many ways depending on the projects, depending on transfer of technology is a great thing, and exchange of knowledge is a great thing, and this is the main purpose of our CPA agreement or any other agreement.
Thank you very much, sir. But I had another point to get clarified from Your Excellency. That is, whether the universities in UAE provide any opportunity for Indian students to do their research work or postdoctoral in those universities, and what are the facilities available to them?
There are lots of universities in the UAE. There are private universities from all over the world, and they attract students from many different parts of the world, and including the region. And there are also well-known Indian universities set up in the UAE. So we welcome any type of students from anywhere in the world, of course, including India.
Now, can I ask Mr. Saket Agarwal?
Good afternoon, Your Excellency, Dr. Ahmed Abdul Rahman, Albanna, sir. Very great talk. I'm a regular visitor to the Middle East, Dubai. We do some business also. We've set up, we are into the EPC business. We manufacture furnaces for aluminum melting. We've set up 3 plants for your local industry over there. I just wanted to know a little more detail about the golden visa. How can one go about applying for it, and how can one get it?
There is a mechanism for it. There is a website that you can get into and apply through the website and provide all the information in terms of your profile, your business, your general information about yourself and all that. And accordingly, the people will process it, and accordingly, the people will follow up with an email or will call you to finish the rest of the processes for obtaining the golden visa.
Thank you very much.
Sri Ashish Junjunwala ji.
Very good afternoon. A very good afternoon to you, His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Abdullah Rahman. I am currently already an exporter into the UAE, and my understanding is that as per the SEPA agreement, a lot of products that will be exported into UAE from India will be exempted from the 5% customs duty. How do I find out whether my product will be exempted from the customs duty under the SEPA agreement, or is it exempted or is it not exempted? How do I find this information?
Well, the list of products are there. Once the implementation begins of the SEPA, you can find all those details on our website or the website of Ministry of Economy and the special website of Minister of State for Foreign Trade. You will get all the info.
Right, but this will take time. This will happen only after the implementation, which you said will take up to 1 month. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. But the information probably will be available very soon. Before the implementation.
All right. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir, we'll take the last question from Mr. Arindam Guha.
Yeah. Good afternoon, His Excellency. Myself is Arindam Guha. I'm speaking from Utkarsh India Limited. Actually, we are also a manufacturer and exporter of steel products to the United Arab Emirates. My question is quite similar to the previous one. My previous question that was asked to you. We are also exporters. We export steel pipe to your country for the last 7 to 8 years. So my question was the same, that the 5% basic customs duty, whether it would be exempted after this implementation of SEPA or not, and how do we know about it?
And my answer will be the same thing as I just mentioned a while ago.
Okay. Yeah, understood. Yeah.
Sir, just I'd like to add,
But then let me say that it is also available with your own Ministry of Commerce.
True, sir.
Your Ministry of Commerce has all those information, and there has been long discussions and many sessions of discussion. So your own Ministry of Commerce has those information also.
Sir, I'd like to simply say that once the agreement is made official and declared, the list of the products exempted with HS code Y will be made officially available on the different websites.
Of
So
course.
all the exporters and importers will come to know what is going to be exempted and what is not going to be exempted. It's not that everything is going to be exempted, but most of the products are going to, and I believe almost over 90% of the products are going to be exempted.
Yes.
Please request Suresh ji for vote of thanks.
Okay. Now I request Mr. Suresh Agrawal, our managing committee member, to propose a hearty vote of thanks, sir. Suresh ji. सुरेश जी आप अपने अनम्यूट करें. Well, it seems that he's having some problem with the connections. So again, anyway, sir, I'll take the liberty of the same. In fact, sir, first of all apologies that the president, our president Rishabh Kothari, could not make it to the event today because of some very unavoidable circumstances. So I, being the chairman of the Foreign Trade Committee Council, so I've taken over it. So it gives me a great pleasure to seize this opportunity after a very engaging and vibrant session on doing business with United Arab Emirates to wholeheartedly thank our most honored guest, His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Abdul Rahman Albanna, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Embassy of United Arab Emirates in India, for his gracious presence at this webinar today, and also for the animated discussion on the whole range of the Indo-UAE relations. It goes without saying that the Indo-UAE business relations have cemented over the years, and they are poised to reach even greater heights in the days to come to the benefit of both our nations. Kolkata, as you are kindly aware, holds the most prominent position in terms of trade and commerce, and has emerged as the most vibrant business center of the entire eastern region since the pre-independence days. It is also the gateway to the Southeast Asia, replete with immense business potentialities. Kolkata represents the hopes and aspirations of millions of people of different parts of India and is the symbol of both cosmopolitanism and modernity. Sir, it is indeed a matter of great satisfaction that His Excellency Dr. Albanna has been nurturing these ties with great care, sincerity, and passion. We are equally grateful to note with amazement the depth of his understanding of the most intricate and complex contemporary realities that underpin the Indo-UAE ties and the contours of the multifaceted bond between the two nations. The insights that he has shared with us today give us a better understanding of the special relationship between the two nations. We are grateful to His Excellency for sharing his valuable thoughts with us. We look forward to more engaging discussions in the future too, once the SEPA is made officially declared and open. Sir, today's article, again, I saw when we were talking about this extra seats and the exemption of the COVID testing. So we find one article, a comment from one of the UAE importer of the jewelry, that there is a huge and big demand for the gold jewelry from Kolkata. So the Kolkata has got a very special position as in respect of the gold jewelry, because the artisans over here are quite, they make very fine quality of the gold jewelry, and that has got a very good in demand in the UAE. So the Kolkata already has a good place, occupying a very good space in UAE market.
And also, if you look at the list of products in terms of bilaterals from India, from UAE to India, gold is number one on the list. And also, I take the liberty to say that gold will benefit from certain tax exemption once it is exported from UAE into India and vice versa.
True, sir. True. I also thank our media friends for their continued support and hope that they will be graciously covering today's proceedings. I thank all of you who have joined this webinar today to make this session worthwhile. Once again, I thank you all. Thank you, His Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sir.